Why Autism is on the Rise with Gen Z and Millennials by Amir Odom. The thumbnail says adult autism, and yeah, I wasn't too impressed, so let's talk about it. I'd never heard of Amir before stumbling upon this video, but his channel banner reads, "Hi, I'm Amir Odom, and I like to provide people with the tools to rationally share their opinion on tough topics." And I think at first glance he appears kind of centrist. He uses the phrase politically homeless. However, he's best friends with Brett Cooper of the Daily Wire. He appeared on Jubilee as a gay conservative, and he has worked with PragerU, an American nonprofit that creates content promoting conservative and capitalist viewpoints. So I don't know, it's not sounding particularly politically homeless to me. It sounds like we've got a home. Amir has over 700,000 subscribers and pumps out content very regularly.
Nothing is really off limits to me.
And now apparently the tough topic of the day is autism. So let's hear what he has to say.
You don't look autistic.
Sounds like someone's got a touch of the tism, if you know what I mean. Not everything is a symptom of autism. Sometimes people just enjoy things.
It seems like autism is on the rise with Gen Z, and I'll even extend this out to millennials. And a lot of this is due to this rise of content and people finding it relatable and really self-diagnosing themselves in it.
Okay, first of all, this is just a silly little pet peeve of mine, but I hate it. I despise it when people use the phrase self-diagnosing themselves. Just say self-diagnosing. The self is already there. It's already present. And this might not be true, but I kind of feel like people say that when they really want to hammer it home. You know, they really want to discredit this person. Oh, they self-diagnosed themselves. But you know, who else are you going to self-diagnose? Your brother? Your neighbor? Amir? Me? I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I just needed to crash out about that quickly. I've got it out of my system. Lots of people say it. It's not just him. But yeah, I mean, autism diagnoses are absolutely on the rise. And I think the internet and social media has had a huge role to play in that. That's very fair to say. More people have access to information about autism and all the many different ways that it can present because it is, in fact, a spectrum. The rumors are true. According to this UK study, there was a 787% exponential increase in autism diagnoses between 1999 and 2018. And they note that because it's more adults and females and lower support needs autistic people being diagnosed, that suggests that better recognition underpins this increase. Rather than, you know, there being anything spooky and creepy in the environment in your medicine cabinet. So yeah, we might see more openly autistic people on TikTok, especially adults, especially lower support needs autistic people, and especially women.
And yeah, for some people, it is almost a trend, it seems like, and they're just attaching themselves to this label to be a part of a group and feel something. While for others, it is very serious, and it's oftentimes the first step to really understanding who they are at the core after years of symptoms and things in themselves that have just been overlooked. And I know what that feels like because even for me, as someone that's clinically diagnosed with ADHD, I knew I was different. I knew things were weird and off, but once I got the diagnosis, it helped me out so much in really helping me understand who I was as a person and how to navigate the world that is best suited for someone with a brain like mine.
So it sounds like Amir should have a really good first-hand understanding of just how much a late in life diagnosis can really change your life. Like, it can basically, you know, make everything you've ever experienced make sense, or at least really change your perspective on it. Because of course, a neurodevelopmental condition doesn't only start affecting you from the moment you're clinically diagnosed, from the moment you have that stamp of approval from a doctor. It's who you've always been, you know?
What is autism? Autism, or autism spectrum disorder, is a developmental difference in how someone experiences the world.
So he starts out really quite well here. He describes what autism is, what the spectrum actually means, and the 3 different levels of support needs. It's actually really, really good. He did a great job.
And it's called a spectrum because it shows up in a variety of different ways for a lot of different people, but at the end of the day, they also have autism, even though it can vary. Now, a lot of people think of the spectrum as like a straight line where you have less autism and more autism, with the terms like, oh, you have a touch of the tism rising, that's where that's coming from, but that's not really how it works. Autism is more like a color wheel where you have a lot of different varying aspects of your life and how someone experiences the world, and it can really vary by person to person. And professionals out there do talk about autism in different levels, but the different levels don't really identify how much autism someone has, but more so how much help they need. And I know level 1 sounds like a little bit autistic and level 3 sounds like a lot a bit autistic, but that's not the case. The levels are just a way to understand and plan for the kind of support and environment someone might need to thrive. But at the end of the day, they're both autistic. I mean, going back to that wheel, I know 2 people who be classified as level 3, but they're completely different. Like, completely different. The only thing they have in common is the amount of support they need on a day-to-day basis.
I really appreciate how much care he took with this explanation. I breathed a sigh of relief. I did this other video where I explained the 3 different levels of support needs, and towards the end, we looked at some infographics. The infographics that come up first on Google, basically, when you search support levels. Oh, they were bad. People get this stuff wrong so often. So yeah, that was great.
Because again, it's literally a spectrum. And because it's a spectrum, that is really what's opened the door for a lot of Gen Z and millennials to really insert themselves into the conversation.
Okay, and this is where we start to go off the rails. The train is veering off the track. But before we get onto that, this video is in very spooky partnership with Wild. Wild is a vegan, reusable deodorant brand that I've been using personally for 3 years now. And they're known for having very cute, refillable aluminium cases that you'll want to keep in your life forever. And this time they have combined 2 very important things, perhaps the 2 most important things. And that is, of course, Halloween and cats. Their new limited edition deodorant cases are skulls and roses, and there's also butterflies on there too. Very cute. Cat eyes. This one's very shiny. And lilac ghost cats. Yes, you heard me correctly. These are not just ghosts, they are also cats. And I don't know about you, but skulls and black cats and ghost kittens, these are perfect for me all year round. These are not just for Halloween in my world. However, they do also have several plain color cases available, and at the moment they currently have SpongeBob cases. What? And apparently SpongeBob is autistic, so you know, representation from Wild. And look, he has a bum. If you turn him around, he has a bum. You can also get him as a refillable lip balm case, and he looks so cute. It's just the little eyes. I love it. I really appreciate that Wild are making it very fun for people to replace the single-use plastic. Wild also have a flexible subscription option, so you don't have to think about ordering your refills, and it's very easy to cancel or pause or switch up your scents if you want a bit of novelty, and they ship worldwide. Speaking of new scents, Wild have collaborated with confectionery company Swizzles to create a drumstick deodorant refill. Smells like raspberries and cream. They also have a Love Heart Sweet lip balm refill and a refresher scent for shower gel and hand wash. And for a limited time, if you use my code, which is MEG2025, you can get 20% off any products on the Wild website. You can use the QR code on screen if you like, or you can click the link at the top of my description.
It feels like it's everywhere. It feels like everyone's self-diagnosing themselves with autism because we're talking about it more online. TikTok, Reels, Instagram, like all these platforms have opened up the conversation, and they've become spaces where people are sharing their personal experiences, they're sharing their quirks, they're sharing how they move through the world, and other people are relating with it. And people are spending time consuming this content, and they're saying, oh wait, that kind of sounds like me. But I think what most people fail to realize is just because you can relate with someone doesn't mean you are that someone.
True, autistic people are in fact people. Who would have thought it? You can absolutely relate to an autistic person as an holistic person, a non-autistic person. Many autistic people have very intense interests. We call them special interests. But of course, non-autistic people can still have hobbies that they're super passionate about. And they might be able to relate to special interests on some level because of that.
People see that autism is on a spectrum and they think that, okay, since it's a spectrum, everybody can be on it, when in reality, again, that's not the case.
Yeah, again, I think most autistic people would agree with you. I say it all the time. I think the phrase on the spectrum does seem to confuse people. A lot of people see it as we're all a bit autistic. You know, it's the straight line and we all fall on it somewhere. But no, it's the autism spectrum. It's the spectrum of autistic experiences, not the human spectrum. Many other conditions are also a spectrum, such as fetal alcohol syndrome, but for some reason autism is the spectrum. I don't know how we got here, but that is where we are. But the thing is, the we're all a bit autistic thing is definitely not just a millennial/Gen Z thing in my experience. I've heard all sorts of different people say this. I think we have to be careful not to do this whole, kids these days, kids in their social media.
Truth be told, there's just a lot of people out there right now that are claiming to have autism, when in reality, they're just bored, socially awkward teens that want to be a part of something because they have no identity for themselves.
He does this quite a lot, like holding his hands up like, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying. Let's break down what he actually said there.
Truth be told, there's just a lot of people out there right now that are claiming to have autism.
So if we measured it, it would be a lot of people. So we're effectively warning viewers, be wary of a large number of people out there right now who say they're autistic, because they're probably not, especially if they're millennial or Gen Z.
When in reality, they're just bored, socially awkward teens that want to be a part of something because they have no identity for themselves.
So they're claiming to have autism because they're just bored and they have no identity for themselves. Do you have any proof to back up that claim? It's horribly dismissive, obviously. But unfortunately, I do see this quite a lot online. People saying things like, real autistic people wouldn't be vocal about their diagnosis. Someone who is truly autistic, would be terribly ashamed to share it with the world. We'll only believe you're autistic if you don't tell us. If you tell us, it's a red flag, so keep it to yourself.
That's just a sad truth, but saying that shouldn't validate all the people who are actually realizing and finding out for themselves that they have autism too.
So disclaimer, there are real autistic people out there, but in amongst them is a bunch of fakes, and we all know it, and we can all see it. Except, do you know the difference between a real autistic and a fake one? Can you find the mole? I mean, it's turning into a Jubilee video. I did a poll on my community tab, and most of the autistic people who responded said their autism DARs, their autism radars, are not always accurate. So, imagine how bad non-autistic people are at playing spot the difference. Reinforcing ideas like this could absolutely lead to autistic people being invalidated. That's the thing.
And then there's this whole discussion about, well, it's the vaccines, it's what we're doing to the kids. Could it be? Maybe. And we'll get into that later on in this video, but I want to make it known that we do not have all of the answers.
Okay, so I think this is pretty emblematic of the issue I personally have with content like this. It doesn't make you more rational to remain non-committal, to tiptoe around taking a hard stance on issues that we already have a definitive answer for. It feels kind of like saying, the earth could be flat. I don't have all of the answers. Just saying, acting like you're ambivalent on everything is not nuance, but I think it can be interpreted that way.
Well, it's the vaccines, it's what we're doing to the kids. Could it be? Maybe.
Vaccines do not cause autism. We know this. And it's genuinely upsetting and offensive to the entire autistic community that we have to keep wasting our breath saying this again and again. The guy who started the vaccine autism link in the late 90s by doing a study that was on 12 people, not all of whom were autistic. He was a fraudster who was struck off the medical register, and he did bizarre things like take blood from children at his child's birthday party. This rumor needs to die. If you do want to be fair and rational about potential environmental causes of autism, you could say something like, sure, there might be some environmental factors linked to autism. Advanced parental age, particularly for fathers, seems to be one, but we don't have definitive causal links yet. And we have known for a very long time that autism is highly heritable. It is mostly down to genetics, and those genetics are very complicated. There's no one autism gene or anything like that. However, studies into environmental links are constantly ongoing. They weren't invented by the Trump administration. But then he swings back to,
all at the same time, connecting more. We're sharing more of our experiences, and we're understanding what it all means. I mean, off the bat, you're looking at some of these studies and examples from the 80s and 90s. Most of the kids with autism were white kids with money. When more people had autism back then was actually reported. Oh, there's a rise in people being autistic, or it's just more accepted and known. Truly, I'm on both sides.
Okay, but what do you do when both sides are completely opposed, though? Are you still on both of them? Are you dipping a toenail into anti-vax and into pro-vaccine and pro-science simultaneously?
On one end, it is very irritating seeing all these people watch a couple of reels and then self-diagnose themselves as having autism and making it their entire personality and talking about it online and making it this big ordeal.
Irritating to see all these people, again implying that it's a lot of people who are cosplaying autism in lieu of a personality. I mean, autism is a neurodevelopmental condition, so you could argue that it is in fact, one's whole personality. It's intertwined with every aspect of who you are. It's how your brain is wired. I kind of am my brain, But I think what people mean when they say someone is making something their entire personality is that they mention it. They're talking about autism. I don't care about autism, so it's boring and or annoying to me. You know, like, please shut up about your disability. But that seems mean, so make it sound like it's the other person's fault. It's your fault because you're making it your entire personality. If you haven't met anybody who makes things their entire personality, and telling autistic people, you know, like the same autistic people who are known for having their intense, like, tunnel vision interests, that they're making one topic their entire personality. Can you see the problem there? I mean, my whole channel is basically my special interest in autism. You know, there's a reason why autistic people might be very likely to get super into researching autism.
Talking about it online and making it this big ordeal.
If autistic people are going to advocate for themselves, they're going to have to mention it sometimes. So maybe let's not shame people for doing so. So then he continues kind of fence sitting.
And on the other side, I'm very happy for the sheer amount of people who are connecting and identifying themselves within these reels and within these TikToks that are out there, and they're really connecting with it and they're seeking the professional help and it's actually real.
And I imagine there's probably quite a few autistic people in his audience watching that right now, thinking, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm one of the real ones. But to be honest, nobody is really marked safe from having their diagnosis dismissed and doubted. I've seen it happen to people all over the spectrum. I've seen it happen to so many different Love on the Spectrum cast members. I've seen it said to parents of autistic children. Lola Young sadly fainted at a concert recently, and I opened up the comments and the first thing I saw was like, looks fake. Numerous people being like, it looks fake to me. I've looked at videos from deaf influencers and seen comments accusing them of faking, people being open about their cancer diagnosis, being accused of faking. I don't know what it is in a human brain that just goes, nope, I don't believe that, but I don't know, it seems to trigger something in people. I just think this culture of fake claiming doesn't help any of us. You may very well not make the cut in their eyes. You know, their unprofessional, unqualified, untrained eyes. I've seen people who were diagnosed as children be treated as though they're too low support needs to be truly autistic. It's not just late diagnosed autistic people.
So yeah, like on one side, it's super annoying and frustrating. And on the other side, I'm very grateful for and it's exciting to see in these people.
It annoys me, but it's also exciting to see. I mean, let's see if he's going to give any examples as we go on here of what is the true exciting autism and what is the frustrating fake autism.
Let's dive right into a couple different perspectives from people who do have autism and people that don't.
Well, the first one is from a creator who describes himself as high masking and talks about how autism is an invisible disability.
On the outside, I may just seem like a quiet, sometimes socially awkward person. But on the inside, it's a much more rich and oftentimes more challenging experience than what people perceive from the outside. And this isn't anyone's fault. There just aren't many people who understand my internal experience or the internal experience of those who are on the autism spectrum.
Autism shows up in a lot of different ways, right? And there's people that have just put on a mask and they've like assimilated into society when reality is very taxing for them. That is a thing. And so like outside looking in, it's clear, like, okay, if we know more about autism and we know more about the different spectrum and what it means, it's clear that more people are going to be identifying with it and it's going to be on the rise. That's just how my brain works. That's how I look at it.
I mean, it also happens to be the truth. It's not just you.
Appreciate this guy sharing his experience because there are a lot of people, especially in the comment section, that relate with this man. But it's also unfortunate because there are a lot of people out there who look at this man and say, okay, he doesn't look like he has autism. He's talking to a camera. He's completely fine. When maybe we should be more empathetic to people and understand and hear them out. I understand there are some bad apples that ruin the experience for people who actually deal with autism.
Are we going to be brave enough to point out some examples of people we can definitively say are bad apples though? Just so we know what to look out for, because as we've pointed out, autism is an invisible disability. Okay, so he goes on to show this TikTok from a creator called Sarah. Her username on TikTok is Saran Wrap. And I know she has been wrongly accused of faking autism before. So let's see what Amir has to say.
Autism and ADHD are just labels. You're perfectly fine. You don't need a label like that. These are the labels I had before my diagnosis. Spoiled brat, difficult, control freak, weirdo, high maintenance, annoying, bitch, rude, self-centered, bossy, temperamental, sensitive, black sheep, too much, dramatic. not enough, try hard, teacher's pet, attention whore, show off, know-it-all, ditzy, bad listener, gullible, chaotic, misbehaved. The list goes on. These labels caused me to develop depression and anxiety. I thought I was broken, when in reality, I just had undiagnosed autism and ADHD. My autism and ADHD label diagnosis saved my life, and I don't think I'd still be here if I hadn't been diagnosed. So instead of being scared of the autism or ADHD diagnosis, think about what other labels are being forced onto and ingrained into undiagnosed people. We deserve answers.
Facts. But this video is so true and relatable in the sense that I'm very quick to judge someone that's like, oh, well, I have autism, or oh, I have ADHD, or I have depression, or I have anxiety, for having these labels, when in reality, like, you're still labeling them no matter what.
And it's really great that he shares her here as an example of a late diagnosed autistic person, because she is. However, Sarah has been posted on the fake disorder cringe subreddit at least 3 times. I have a video about that here. I also reacted to my own diagnosis being debated over on that subreddit in that very same episode. Oh my god, it's Meg's channel made it onto fake disorder cringe. I feel nervous. Why do I feel nervous? And so anyway, it's great that Amir believes Sarah, but not everyone does.
Because yeah, on one end, autism is rising and it's trending and more people are diagnosing themselves with it, but there's also a rise in people actually getting clinically diagnosed. They're not necessarily changing. Yeah, they got diagnosed with autism, but they've always had autism. This isn't something that you're just catching. This isn't something that's just spreading around.
This isn't just something caused by babies taking Tylenol after circumcision, because otherwise the UK would surely have much lower rates of autism in boys than the US. Most of our boys are not circumcised. I don't know, they really didn't think that one through.
Even for me, like when I was out in college and I was actually living on my own for once, I quickly, immediately saw that, oh, I'm very different. I already know what's different in high school. Like I was voted most unique. I always spent time with the teachers. I never really was in lunch. I never really had like a friend group. I hopped around a lot. I knew something was off extremely to the point where I did drop out and I did take a year off because I just didn't understand. Like I changed my major 7 times, you guys.
Yeah, I think that's such a common experience. I also had a really hard time getting through education, and I ended up dropping out when I was 17. Despite doing well, despite getting good grades, I just couldn't cope with the environment and the pressure. And it took me ages to figure out why. And it was probably thanks to the people who, you know, make autism their whole personality that I eventually did find out.
But what I did know is that I needed to seek professional help, and that's what I did, and I'm glad I did, because now I have the tools to best understand myself, and I know what works for people that have a brain like me and what doesn't work. And that's why I'm so excited to partner with today's sponsor, BetterHelp.
Okay, and then we roll into a BetterHelp ad, and then Amir looks at another great evidence-based TikTok talking about why the prevalence of autism seems to have risen so dramatically.
Spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with vaccines.
So note that Amir seems to be smiling here at the mention of vaccines. I'm not sure, is that agreement? Is that amusement because he disagrees? I don't know. I don't know if he knows either. As I say, we'll come back to his thoughts on vaccines in a minute.
Autistic people have always been here, but I was born in 93 and I wasn't diagnosed for another 21 years. So we were always here. Autistic people were always here when I was...
Yeah, I mean, I think about, there's a rise in a bunch of people being gay. There is. For a small minority of people, it is a trend and they're trying to fit in, much like with autism. But a large chunk of the gays have always been there.
So as I say, Amir is gay himself. But again, we're implying that there are some trend-chasing people who pretend to be gay in order to fit in. Which reminds me of the Ariel Scarcella and Book Angel videos that I reacted to last year. These two things so often go together. People who believe, you know, there are a lot of autism fakers out there also believing that there are a lot of attention-seeking LGBTQ plus fakers. And again, it's like, surely it's harmful to the entire community if we train the general public to be immediately skeptical of anybody who shares their sexuality and gender. There are already a lot of people who assume being gay is just a phase, something you'll grow out of, or people who believe being bi is not a thing. I mean, it's just not your job to police if any identity is real. You don't share that person's internal experience. It's just kind of like none of your business. It's also completely fine for people to engage in self-exploration and maybe change their mind about what labels fit them as time goes on. Someone might explore the idea that they could be autistic and find out that they're actually an ADHDer. That is completely fine, and they would never have got to the conclusion of, being an ADHDer and maybe getting medication that they need if they hadn't first tried on, thought about the fact that they could be autistic.
It reminds me of the left-handed conversation that I mentioned earlier. Oh, there's this big rise in people that are left-handed. Oh, they've always been there. It's just been stigmatized that maybe they shouldn't use that hand. And then now we're in a world that's more accepting of these people.
Yeah, and maybe let's try and keep it that way for people, especially in this political climate.
And just because we see a sharp rise in something doesn't always mean that there's something major going on or causing it. Can there be? For sure. There totally can be something out there, but there doesn't always have to be that way.
He then goes on to say,
we don't know everything. We just don't. And to say that, oh, well, it is 100%, 10% vaccines that are causing autism. Y'all, there's so much going on. There's so much around us, so much that we're being infected with. Who really knows?
So who really knows about vaccines? But we do know there is no link to autism. Meg from the past can explain the research, so I don't have to do it again. In 2002, an absolutely massive Danish study found no increased risk of autism in vaccinated children when compared to unvaccinated children. And they repeated the study in 2019 because of continued fear-mongering, and they found exactly the same thing. I feel like I'm going to be doing it in every single damn video. Again, please watch the H-Bomber Guy video about vaccines and autism. Send it to everyone you know. It's oddly very entertaining. I mean, when you say who really knows, do you not really mean I don't know? I haven't personally taken the time to do the reading, or maybe it's a case of I just don't know which sources are trustworthy and therefore I'm confused. Unfortunately, when sentences like that are presented in this calm manner, it can come off as somebody being rational, as keeping an open mind. I'll be the bigger person. I'll listen to both sides. I'll act as though all opinions are equally valid. But sometimes that then means that you end up indulging and worse, platforming misinformation and disinformation. You end up giving pseudoscience the same weight as the evidence-based consensus. There is no link between vaccines and autism. Sometimes you've got to come in with strength and say, no, that is unequivocally incorrect. Amir has another recent video in which he discusses his thoughts on the recent autism Tylenol situation. So let's take a quick detour there because I think that's a good example of what I'm talking about. So here he's reacting to this warning, infuriating TikTok from this woman who's having a fictional conversation with a blue-haired lib, I suppose. She's got a blue hair filter on.
RFK Jr. just said Tylenol and pregnancy can cause increased autism risk. No way, he's literally a quack.
I think quack is quite generous, to be honest.
And gobbling Tylenol with her baby in her placenta.
Oh, so you don't trust Harvard? This has nothing to do with Harvard. No, this actually has everything to do with Harvard, considering it was from 46 studies that they did conduct. They found that...
What happened to trust the science?
So she seems to be a bit confused here. Harvard did not conduct 46 studies into the Tylenol autism link. They performed a meta-analysis, so they analyzed the results of 46 other studies, a third of which actually showed that Tylenol either had no effect on autism risk or it had a protective effect. But yes, this recent Harvard meta-analysis is the main piece of research they're using to say Tylenol bad. And if we look at the conclusion of this very study, our analysis demonstrated evidence consistent with an association, keyword, between exposure to acetaminophen, Tylenol, during pregnancy and offspring with neurodevelopmental disorders, so not just autism, ADHD was included too. Observational limitations preclude definitive causation. That means they have not proved that Tylenol causes autism. And a correlation, of course, does not equal causation. Just because two things are linked does not mean that one is causing the other one. Maybe autistic people tend to take more Tylenol when they're pregnant and then go on to have autistic children because, genetics. When another big Swedish study performed a sibling control analysis, so basically they controlled for things like genetics, this link between Tylenol and neurodevelopmental differences went away. And the other issue with the Harvard study is that one of the authors previously made a lot of money as an expert witness in a case against acetaminophen manufacturers. And if you look at the Harvard paper, you will see this as a competing interest.
All 2020, you were telling me, trust the science. The science is saying this college study this college study that. Okay, well, what about this science?
I mean, not all science, not all studies are created equal. That's why it's good to look out for the scientific consensus, which which is that acetaminophen, Tylenol, is the first choice painkiller when you are pregnant.
They're not saying completely that, oh, that Tylenol directly caused autism. No, it's just saying it could be linked to it.
But that's not how they presented that information to the general public.
Don't take Tylenol.
And knowing as a pregnant woman, they can't have sushi, cold cut meats.
You guys can't have a load of stuff anyway. Why not just avoid the safest painkiller you can take in pregnancy?
It's like, do we really know what's affecting the baby and what's not? Could there be a chance that Tylenol does something weird? Maybe it's literally a pill you take and the chemicals and it goes to your head and gets rid of a headache. So what if it's going to the head of the baby? We don't know these things for certain. So yeah, it could be.
Providing you with the tools to rationally share your opinion on tough topics. Just shrug and say, it could be. I don't know. And then make a load of money.
We trusted Biden on the health stuff, and he didn't recommend this, so we're good. Right, so you'll take an experimental schmack sheen without question. But when Harvard says Tylenol might be risky for your kid, suddenly it's politics.
So Amir pulls a face in agreement and says thank you. So clearly we're not a fan of the vaccines, or at least the COVID vaccine.
Don't let politics blind you. Facts matter when it comes to your child's health.
I mean, that's it. That's literally it. And when it comes from my own opinion on this whole autism and Tylenol, again, listen to your doctor. And two, there are various things that are happening to our bodies at all times, with all the different chemicals we're taking in. I don't know the proper words. I'm not a scientist, so like, stay with me. Could there be a chance it's like going to the baby's brain? Could it be a chance it's doing something else? Yeah, there could be. Nothing's definitive.
Maybe nothing's definitive would be a better slogan here. And obviously we can't all know everything, so if you don't know enough yet to take a definitive stance, maybe hold off on making a video on that particular tough topic until you're more confident and have formed an opinion. But when you're posting about 8 videos a month on a very broad range of topics, that's pretty hard to do. And also, of course, you'd have to be willing to potentially lose a few members of your audience if you ended up saying something that they didn't like. I find it so strange how he platforms these TikToks and kind of lets other people take the hard stances for him, and he just like kind of pulls a few facial expressions, says a couple of words in agreement, and then he shrugs and goes, well, who really knows?
Nothing's definitive.
It gives you a bit of plausible deniability, I suppose. I was just exploring both sides. It wasn't me.
Don't confuse politics and science. Like, just practice some damn discernment. We need media literacy and we need church. People need to find God, truly. Nothing's definitive.
Okay, let's jump back to the other video.
And that's why it does make me upset seeing, you know, a certain subset and a rise of people in Gen Z and millennials who are clinging to this, saying they have autism and making it their whole personality, or claiming to have something that they don't just to fit in because they have one quirk, or they're a little bit awkward here, or they act like this over here.
I guess he means fitting into a quirky little subgroup, subculture on TikTok, because out in the real world, I don't think any or many people are pretending to be autistic in order to seem cool. I don't think that's something we need to worry about. I feel like saying somebody is pretending to be a minority in order to fit in with the majority doesn't really make any sense. People aren't, you know, suddenly accepted socially and welcomed with open arms as soon as they disclose their autism diagnosis. The autism acceptance and the neurodiversity movements, you know, like they've not made that much progress just yet. And the issue is a lot of autistic people have spent their entire lives training or being trained to appear as normal as possible. So especially to the untrained eye, you know, it might seem like we're just a bit socially awkward and we only have a couple of visible traits. I think telling your audience that there's this high number of Gen Z and millennial fakers out there is just going to make them suspicious of high-masking autistic people who don't look autistic.
And people have this view of what autism is in their head, or that's this huge negative thing and that it's extremely bad, when it's literally just a different pathway of how a brain works.
Exactly. And therefore it's invisible. You can't see it. So when someone tells you they are autistic, I think the safest and kindest thing to do is believe them. And if you don't like them, if you don't find them interesting, if you don't find the things that they make their entire personality interesting, you don't have to spend time with them. It's fine. But you don't need to tell them they're not autistic either. So Amir then plays and laughs along to this TikTok about the Gen Z stare. If you don't know what the Gen Z stare is, it has a Wikipedia page age now. The Gen Z stare is a phrase coined by social media users to describe a blank stare that members of younger generations give in situations where a verbal response would be more common. I often see it used in the context of customer service.
This Gen Z stare thing, it just is funny because it's like y'all swore y'all had autism and it really was just y'all have no social skills. That's just really what it is.
But this is a thing. Like the caption says, you don't have autism, you're just a Gen Z with no social skills. That exists.
Okay, but it's not either or. You know, like Gen Z could both have a more reserved approach to customer service, and there could also be more Gen Z as being diagnosed autistic, which there are. It's saying somebody isn't autistic, they just have no social skills. I mean, like, what is criterion A on the diagnostic criteria? Don't you like have to hit the social deficit stuff in order to meet the diagnostic criteria for autism? So I definitely don't think that you can come to the conclusion that somebody is not autistic just because they struggle with their social skills and they're young. That doesn't make any sense.
There are people out there that are Gen Z or millennials, whatever it may be. You just don't have social skills. And just because you don't have social skills doesn't mean you have autism. That's not how that works.
I mean, if someone behaves as though they literally have no social skills, there might be a chance they're diagnosed with something. But assuming he's exaggerating here, sure, some people can be shy and introverted and they're not autistic. In order to be diagnosed autistic, as well as the social stuff, you also need to hit 2 out of the 4 of the restricted repetitive behaviors. There is a lot more to autism than just being, you know, bad at social. But you definitely can't use someone's lack of social skills to determine whether or not they're a faker. Again, we haven't had any examples of where the bad apples are.
You can't just like watch a TikTok and like, oh my gosh, damn, I'm bad with social skills too, or damn, I get a little bit drained around people too, I must have autism. No, that's not how that works, and there's a lot of people out there doing that, and it's just not the case.
Again, he's saying there's a lot of people out here doing that, so we need to keep our eyes peeled for those pesky Gen Zers. They could be anywhere. They could be in your house.
You're just socially awkward because you were stuck in the house for 2-3 years in one of the most developmental times in your life, and that's it.
So there's a lot of people who think they're autistic, but actually they were just stuck inside during COVID at one of the most developmental times of their lives. I mean, we've been talking quite a lot about millennials here as well. I am the youngest a millennial can possibly be. I was born in 1996 and I was in my mid-20s during the pandemic with a small child. Was that one of the most developmental times of my life? I don't know. I was autistic before then. I was still autistic afterwards. Everyone was in lockdown at completely different stages of their development. Gen Z was anywhere between 8 and 23 years old, you know. I imagine the effects vary massively and it depends where in the world you were. Anyway, then to provide us with a bit more balance, because we're doing balance, he then shows us a TikTok from somebody who explains that it's very offensive to say that somebody doesn't look autistic.
It's super offensive to say, but you don't look autistic, right? Autism doesn't have a look.
Valid. And autism doesn't have a look.
But then the next TikTok that he shows and laughs along with is this.
In case you're wondering, you're probably not autistic, you're just weird. I love that. Are there people out there actually getting clinically diagnosed? Yes. However, are there people who are just trying to cling on to something, to feel something, to be a part of an identity, to be a part of this community and just say they have something just to say they have it? For sure. I've seen it firsthand. I see it all the time. It's like you're just quirky. You're just a little weird. You just have a special hobby.
Okay, but where? Why don't you give us some examples? The burden of proof lies with you, the person who is making these claims. And I think he doesn't show examples because he knows it's mean and he knows there's a high chance he could show somebody who is actually autistic, like they do all the time over on Fake Disorder Cringe. Because you can't tell, because you can't look autistic. So how can it simultaneously be true that he sees it all of the time?
I've seen it firsthand. I see it all the time. And autism doesn't have a look.
I really don't know. And I think not showing any examples of the bad apples just allows his audience to fill in the gaps with whatever sort of person they deem to be not autistic enough. Probably women, people who are AFAB, probably lower support needs autistic people, probably people of color, probably people who are not their white nephew or neighbor who's 5 or whatever. As somebody who spends basically every day in this community, I mean, this is my job, I can very confidently say I have never come across anybody I've had even a niggling suspicion might be faking autism. I have met a lot of people who are not sure yet, who are just exploring the possibility, who are maybe waiting for a diagnosis. I mean, most of the time when autistic people don't have a clinical diagnosis, they're very quick to tell you. People usually kind of identify as self-diagnosed and differentiate themselves. It's like sometimes people go overboard with clarifying their diagnostic status. Autistic people often like to be honest. As I say, I don't see anything wrong with self-exploration, and if someone was genuinely just trying it on for attention, I feel like they're probably going to get bored quite quickly if it doesn't resonate. And if not, if they don't, there probably is something going on there, I'd imagine, because why else would you lie about having a stigmatizing label? It is a stigmatizing label, particularly in this political climate. As an autistic person, this is just so far from our biggest concern.
Hot take, not everything is autism. There seems to be a significant population on this app that believes that if you have a certain interest towards something and you develop skills in that subject, like let's say that you're a kid that grew up watching anime and the animations piqued your interest. So what do? Over the next 5 to 10 years, you spend thousands of hours and thousands of dollars honing your skill. And then you decide to post a video of your progress. Hey guys, look what I can do. And here comes somebody saying, oh yeah, you must be autistic to be this good at something. Because a lot of people wholeheartedly believe that you cannot be that good at something without having some type of neurodivergence. This is not a knock on people who actually have autism. In fact, I feel that by categorizing every little display of personality and passion as autism, you kind of invalidate their day-to-day lives.
Yes.
Now that's not—
And yes, somebody having an intense interest does not mean you should make the assumption that they're autistic. You know, especially if you're using autism as a pejorative, as a lot of people do, and they leave comments saying things like, is it acoustic? That is not the same thing, obviously, as people self-identifying as autistic. However, if someone tells you that they are autistic and then they do happen to have an intense interest, that does fit with the diagnostic criteria. That is a thing. So, you know, definitely don't turn around and say something like, anyone can have a hobby, you smelly faker.
But unless a medical professional diagnoses you with that, don't let TikTok do it for you. If you have any concerns about your mental health, please go get checked out by your person that went to school to help you.
Yes, go get actual help, go get an actual diagnosis, but don't take 2-3 TikToks and say, yep, that's me. I see myself in that. I have autism. We're done. It's done. I'll have another video, so be sure to subscribe, just focusing on the sheer amount of self-diagnosing that people have been doing and are doing. But again, it's bittersweet because self-diagnosis is oftentimes the first step, the first path to actually getting a real diagnosis. So it's helping people.
I do appreciate that Amir acknowledges that for many people, self-diagnosis is the first step. As an adult, you know, unless you're in a state of crisis and you have a mental health team, it's probably quite unlikely you're going to find yourself in an autism assessment unless you push to get that referral. You know, the autism aliens are not going to abduct you in the night and provide you with the diagnosis. But then he says,
but on the other side, it is invalidating a lot of the lived experiences for the people that actually do have said thing that they're being diagnosed with.
I think people are often confused about what self-diagnosing actually means. And I understand that it might sound odd to people outside of the community. I mean, for many conditions, self-diagnosis would be completely impossible. But autism is not a mental health condition. It's not a medical emergency. It doesn't need to be, you know, quickly medicated. It's how your brain is wired and how it's always been wired. And so as somebody who, you know, lives in your own head, you have a unique insight that nobody else has. And autism is genetic, so you may already have autistic family members diagnosed, which might make you feel a bit more confident. Diagnosis is expensive, wait lists are long, and as I say, it is stigmatizing. People might worry that having a diagnosis on their record is going to make their life harder in some ways. And so self-identifying, which often means months or even years of research, of combing back through your history, it can be a great way to find self-understanding. And the autism community is mostly warm and supportive of self-identification, so you can find peer support. And for a lot of people, that's enough. They don't feel like they need a diagnosis, and that's completely within their rights. They don't owe anybody a diagnosis. I think it's highly unlikely you're going to be accessing any sort of supports or accommodations as a self-identified autistic person, so it's not like you're taking anything away from the clinically diagnosed autistic people or anything like that. And I think the biggest risk to self-identifying is to yourself. What if it turns out you have a mental health condition instead, or you have a comorbid mental health condition that could be treated? I think we must be careful not to assume that poor mental health is inevitable as an autistic person. Even if you are a self-identified autistic person, you know, always go and seek support for poor mental health. But I do think people often overestimate the negative impact that self-diagnosis has, and, you know, also misunderstand what it actually means in practice.
So I've started getting into like puzzles and stuff on the weekends. Oh, sounds like someone's got a touch of the autism, if you know what I mean. Not every everything is a symptom of autism. Sometimes people just enjoy things.
Accurate. Not everything is a symptom of having autism or having ADHD, whatever it may be. And there's a lot of people in Gen Z and late millennials doing this. And I hope that we'll get away from this trend of people saying every little thing is autistic.
I mean, yeah, don't peer diagnose people, especially not if you mean it as a pejorative. If you're just jokingly insulting your friend and saying, huh, are you autistic? You know, that's really stigmatizing. But of course, that's a completely separate thing to self-identifying self-diagnosis. That's using autism as an insult.
But this will be the first of many videos that will be talking about mental health and talking about the different struggles and ways that other people operate through life, whether it is autism, whether it be ADHD. But this is the first of many videos to come on this topic of mental health and the things that people are going through.
Maybe there's an ongoing contract with BetterHelp there.
So let me know in the comments below too, was this relatable to you? Are you someone with autism? Are you someone who has someone with autism in your life? Level 1s through 3. Even for yourself, are you on the spectrum? Are you a late diagnosis? Are you like a late Gen Z, early late millennial, or even Gen X? Let me know in the comments below. Let's connect. Share your stories if you're open to it. We'd love to connect with you all in the comments.
Unfortunately, I can't hear let me connect with you, let me connect with you guys in the same way anymore. After that neurotypical's okay video that we looked up.
Somebody please throw me a bone, like let me connect with you.
I mean, yeah, it is quite interesting to look at the comment section of this video, see what impact it's having on people. There are a lot of people who are clearly quite angry at the fakers, who we did not see in this video, but we have been warned they are out there. That pisses me off. My son is 19 and was diagnosed when he was 4. I have watched him struggle his whole life and hate himself for being different. He just wants to be like, and it hurts me to watch people be mean to him. He doesn't have it on purpose. Screw people who pretend. I mean, I don't think late diagnosed autistic adults are the ones being mean to your child. Swear emoji, skull emoji. Diagnosed at 2. I'm not saying you aren't valid, but please get an actual diagnosis. This isn't quirky, this isn't fun, this isn't trendy, this is hell. I mean, absolutely, life can be a huge struggle for autistic people. People have varying support needs. But again, bad mental health is not inevitable with autism. So if you feel like that, maybe you want to try and get some more support. Autistic people can absolutely be happy. And I get that everybody has a completely different life situation and some people are more privileged than others. But not all autistic people feel like their life is hell. And that doesn't make them any less valid of an autistic person. I think like that is the goal, to not feel like your life is hell. Lots of people are self-diagnosing themselves with autism because they think it's a quirky trend. Just because you have hobbies or behaviors or something, it doesn't mean you're autistic. It means you're you. That turned inspirational at the end of that. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Maybe this is a harsh take, but most of the people that I know who claim they have autism in the trendy way have deep parental issues. Oh, when I first started my channel, I had that in my comments a lot. People trying to diagnose me with other conditions, which is very inappropriate and ridiculous. You don't know me, but also telling me like, oh, you just didn't have a dad, you know, that kind of stuff. Anyone who says they were self-diagnosed needs to get a real diagnosis and then live with the results, even if it's the embarrassment of being told, no, you don't have autism. I mean, it's a very harsh thing to say when we have a lot of professionals who still believe that autistic people can never possibly make eye contact, especially if they're a pesky woman, you know? Chiming in with my own thoughts as someone diagnosed with autism at an early age, it fucking sucks. Do not ever get it. Even if it's only self-diagnosis, pretend time autism. Don't get circumcised because you will become autistic and die. Influencers/people who are self-diagnosing should go volunteer at a therapeutic day school for children with autism. I would be interested to hear what their thoughts are after a week. Autism is a spectrum. That might be their thoughts. I hate that autism is a trend. My son has autism and he is not really verbal. He tries to be. It pisses me off that people claim this and clearly, in all caps, do not have it. Invisible disability. So I'm not sure how it is clear. It can't really be clear. I mean, Amir's tone might be quite calm. There are moments where he sounds very empathetic, but clearly his viewers are not coming away from his video with warm and fuzzy feelings towards the autistic adults in Gen Z and millennials, which we referred to in the title and the thumbnail of the video. And I do worry that this sort of faux nuanced content is somewhat more insidious than something that's overtly hateful. You know, it's much more palatable. It's subtle. He seems like a reasonable enough guy. He's not getting heated. He's not getting emotional about these topics. He's just got a few questions about vaccines and black people. And unfortunately, Amir being black and gay himself grants legitimacy to these viewpoints. People can watch him and go, see, I'm not racist, I'm not homophobic. Even he agrees with the stuff that I'm saying. In the comments of this video he made about why no one cares about Pride anymore, someone said, I am friends with a gay man at work. He dislikes gays who make it their entire personality. I was like, crap. That makes sense, lol. I mean, does that sound familiar? It doesn't matter how nicely you present and platform bigotry. Like, no, Charlie Kirk wasn't a great guy because he didn't beat trans people. Like, what are we saying here?
Charlie gets called a transphobic bigot. The crowds get called transphobic bigots. There's a trans person that went through that crowd, is asking a question. No one's heckling them. No one's harassing them. No one's beating them. Charlie's sitting there being super respectful, hearing them out. That's all he ever did, was hear people out.
Just because somebody calls themselves rational doesn't mean that they are. And just because something is presented as balanced doesn't mean that it is. It's not just how something is said, how it is presented, it is what is being said. The content matters as well. So if you want to see a bit of fake claiming in action, last week's video was a response to the fake disorder cringe subreddit. You can definitely see a pattern in the kind of people they pick up as fakers, the kind of people they decide are the bad apples. See if you can spot what that pattern might be as you go through. If you want something lighter, I'll also leave my memes playlist linked down below. The last one had a duck talking about autism and he was very, very wise. I liked him, although he was trying to steal my job. Now that I've kind of moved again, I've settled down, I've been trying to post a bit more. So if you are enjoying all the videos I've been posting recently and you have the means to, I would be so grateful if you could support the channel on Patreon. You absolutely do not have to. And if you do, feel free to come and go and move around tiers whenever you like. Look after yourself first. But I am very grateful to everybody who does support me on Patreon because Google AdSense has not been great for a lot of creators. This year, I could post a handful of videos in a year probably without my patrons. You get 2 exclusive videos every month. There's also a podcast on higher tiers and there are little outtakes clips from pretty much all of my videos, are probably nearly 100 up on there now. The last exclusive video was actually a reaction to Jubilee, not Amir's episode, a different episode. It was one from 5 years ago and it was so wholesome. I was like, oh my goodness, what has happened to Jubilee? Yeah, you don't realize how much it's changed until you go back there. Not my Jubilee. And all patrons also get to join the Discord server where you can chat to other like-minded people. You don't have to be diagnosed to join. You don't have to disclose any diagnoses. You're welcome if you're just a kind neurotypical person. It's just a really nice welcoming space. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can get 20% off anything on the Wild website with the code MEG2025. You can use the QR code on screen or the link in the description, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye from SpongeBob's bottom. Yeah.